Welcome to The Grand Balance, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by two working grandmas navigating the beautiful chaos of work and family. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about travel tips with kids. Sharon, I know you travel a lot with your family. You mentioned it on a previous episode, how much you traveled even just over the holidays. So I can anticipate that you have a lot of good and bad experiences traveling with your family.
I feel like I'm basically a baby traveling expert now.
Oh, so good. We'll get to learn a lot from you. I know my daughter and son-in-law travel often with my grandson. He's had so many air flights and road trips already in his first 15 months of life, way more than I had even into my 20s.
That's funny. I know I was trying to count my granddaughter's flights. It's a lot.
I mean, good for them. I don't know how many parents are looking forward to that, but my kids seem to have nailed it. Like they do such a good job. Now, they only have one.
Right, which we all know it is quite different with two, but I do think with the proper preparation, it can be a really fun experience.
But if you aren't prepared, oh my goodness, I think it could be a little challenging. So I was doing research for this episode and found an article from Condé Nast, which is, a very well-respected travel publication. And the article was entitled, How to Travel with Kids According to Globetrotting Parents. So they interviewed hundreds of parents who travel with their kids to get consensus on some of the best tips.
And I imagine it varies a lot depending on the age of the kids.
It does. And so we're going to talk about little kids and a little bit about older as well.
Yeah, because I feel like older is just logistics in your planning and making sure that the trip is nice. But the travel with older kids is not usually a hardship.
Except the attitudes and like, I'm bored.
That's what I mean. It's about the trip experience.
That's right. That's right. Okay. All right. Again, I'm going off of my personal experience. All right. So tip number 1, pack light and buy basics abroad. And most parents who were interviewed for this survey said the first time that they traveled, they packed the whole house and then realized it wasn't necessary. For example, diapers can be bought mostly anywhere that you visit.
But another good tip I saw with this traveling was a lot of people, if they're not planning on using the car seat on the plane, fill the car seat with diapers and then put it in the cover for the car seat and then gate check it that way.
Love that tip.
Because you have all that empty space.
Right. And it's funny because my son-in-law, when I was traveling with him and my daughter, I was going to help them babysit while they went to a wedding away. And I was following my son-in-law and he had the big backpack on with the car seat. And then he had so many different contraptions. And I thought, if you are not in strong physical shape, how are you carrying all of this?
No, well, come on. It takes physical strength to have little ones. I feel in general, between lugging them around and playing on the ground. And I'm a little sore yesterday just from putting the little granddaughter in a basket, whipping her up and down the hallway to entertain her for a while. So
true. And in fact, as I was recovering from my surgery, I couldn't lift anything over 10 pounds for 6 weeks. And it is hard when you have kids. I don't know if somebody had major surgery and they didn't have support.
Oh, you'd have to have help. Yeah, because kids, once they're past, a couple months, they're over 10 pounds.
Yeah, my grandson right now is 25 pounds. And he says, uppa, like I want up. And looks up at me, puts his arms up, and I can't pick him up. It was so sad.
Oh, yeah, that would be heartbreaking. I have to disagree with the first tip a little bit because with the travel we've done, as long as you have manpower with enough arms, I feel like it's nice having everything you need already with you so you're not having to run to the store and rebuy a bunch of stuff. I feel like we didn't really have to buy anything on our trip to Denver or to Scottsdale, and it was really nice not having to worry about any of that.
I mean, maybe this is for people that don't have full families traveling together.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need some extra hands for sure. The other thing that's kind of interesting now that we didn't have is just the grocery order. You can put a grocery order from Target or the local grocery store and have it delivered to where you are, and whatever you need to whip up some baby food and food for the family is right there on your doorstep.
Yeah, if you're going to a major city that has that, absolutely. So then again, it supports number 1, which is you don't have to pack so much stuff if you can take advantage of some of those other services.
I wouldn't have thought of that. And my daughter had a whole Target order delivered to my sister's house right when we got there. And this would have not have occurred to me.
Right. Yeah, because we are old school thinking and new school thinking.
We think we have to jump in the car and run to the store.
Yeah. And then the second tip, and this is for families with smaller children, is bring a micro stroller after 6 months.
I would
Because
wholeheartedly agree with that one.
my daughter and son-in-law were taking the big stroller for a while. And it was funny because their grandfather, my dad, had offered them this micro stroller that he had. And they're like, no, we're good. We don't need it. And then finally we got it, and it's the best thing ever. So now they take it everywhere with them. So they're not lugging so many big things. It just added to the extra weight that you were talking about, that you need so many different hands to support.
No, there's so many cool little strollers that you can put in the overhead compartments now too.
And then the third, which I didn't even know they had these, is to invest in inflatable booster seats and bed bumpers.
Yeah, I've seen those. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on those too.
Really? So what do you do like for restaurants and stuff that might not have high chairs or booster seats? You got to be pretty strategic of where you go.
True, but there's things that you can put. There's a couple of different things that we've come across. Once they're sitting well, there's like a cloth thing that ties around the back of the chair that ties between their legs. So it kind of holds them up like, I don't know how to describe it, but it holds them in place. So it's attached to the chair. I can put a picture on the website of that for sure.
But does it hold them up high enough to like have or are they just sitting in the chair?
That would be on a chair.
So is it high enough for they to like get up onto the table? So you could they could be part of the table?
I don't think that would work in that case so well.
Okay.
What we did, we meaning my daughter, because I had never seen this, there's the cutest little camp chair that folds up like you would use a chair to go to the park and watch a ball game. Little tiny mini chair that folds up into like a little sleeve, and it has a tray. And this did sit up on a chair, and you could attach it securely onto a chair or a booth or whatever you needed to do. And she used that as her high chair our whole trip, and it was fabulous.
So we have that. We have the what you're talking about here, actually, at my house. So when the baby comes, he sits there in a chair and eats with the family. But again, it's one more thing to carry. So the inflatable booster made sense to me because you smash it, it's like flat as a pancake, and then you just blow it up.
I feel like this thing is as small or smaller than something you would inflate almost, Angela.
Well, you're going to have to put it on the Fabulous Find then, because I think it's what I have. And
I will put it, but it really didn't take up much space. Like it fit in the diaper bag fine, but I will put it. That will be my Fabulous Find this week.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
It's really, it worked out really well. So, I had never seen it.
So far, Sharon has debated on two of the three of the globetrotting parent experts.
Yeah. Now, also, I'd like to mention that my experience is with sub 1-year-old, so I think it may change.
And you're traveling with a lot of people too.
True, and plenty of backup.
Tip number 4, I think, is very obvious no matter what age your kids you're traveling with, and that is always have food on hand.
100%.
You cannot pack enough food. And in fact, I do this when I travel at work. I have so many snacks in my bag, in my briefcase, because of delays on flights. Sometimes there's too much turbulence. They won't even serve you anything. So I am a big advocate of always having food on hand.
Also, we got delayed in Denver for 9 hours coming back.
Oh my God.
And
you weren't sitting on the tarmac that long, were you?
No. We were in the airport terminal. They just kept delaying the plane. Couple tips on that people may not know, or it might be obvious to people too. I'm not sure. But one thing obviously was plenty of water, plenty of food, because you just never know how long you'll be delayed. But check your credit cards, because if you have access to a lounge, that was life-saving. Not life-saving, I'm being dramatic, I realize. But it was so nice to have a place to be able to sit comfortably. They had nursing rooms. They had a relaxation room you could schedule. My daughter went promptly into that for a half an hour and left us quickly with the baby. She definitely needed the relaxation, but who knew they had those? Wow. With like a massage chair and relaxing music and headphones. So, and then of course there's complimentary food and drinks and so forth. But I think a lot of people don't realize some of the credit cards they have may give you access to some of those type of lounge type situations. It really helped our 9-hour layover.
That's good to know and to plan for ahead of time. Number 5, for the older kids, involve them in planning. What do they want to see? Where do they want to eat? I love that idea, because then they get excited about, we get to go to the place that I picked.
Exactly. And then they're going to be on board too.
Right. And then they can't say, I'm bored. Well, you picked it.
So yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah. This one to me, because we've talked about this so much, and I'm reading a book, the #1 bestseller in the nonfiction.
So now you're debating
books.
them as well.
No, well, kinda. Yes, this is my debate. So you've debated a few. I'm going to debate this one. But I'm going to talk about a possible future episode. I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Anxious Generation. It's #1 in the New York Times bestseller list.
Which we do need to re-explore that topic too.
I think we will once I get through the book, although I have to say it's very academic, meaning like a lot of statistics and stuff. So I'm having a hard time engaging myself to get into this book.
But the topic itself is so interesting that I think there is so much interesting things we can talk about.
Right. So I think we will talk a little bit about that. But the reason I bring it up is because #6 on the tip list is make peace with screens. To keep them quiet on public transportation or in restaurants, be okay with giving them a screen. And I have a personal problem with this. Not for everybody, but I'm going to rephrase that. Maybe a little bit, but not the whole dinner. And I think I mentioned on a prior episode.
We've definitely talked about screens in a lot.
Yeah, like the best restaurant in the world. And I told that story about the family that just all the kids sat down, pull up their computers.
I think that's another example, though, of zip it. It's up to the parents. I completely agree with you. I just walked into a restaurant the other day with a grandma and a mom and 2 kids, probably around 1 and 3. Both kids are at the restaurant with I'm assuming the mom and the grandma's phones propped up in front of them. And I'm thinking how sad that they can't all enjoy each other's company. And at the same time, I reminded myself, I have no idea what's going on. And maybe the mom and grandma need a chance to talk about something. So I kind of went back on it. But to me, I just felt sad.
And that's what I had said in that episode we talked about it, is I felt sad because the kids weren't getting that experience, right? Of this wonderful place in the Costa Rica that's like world renowned or whatever. So,
or in this case, even social interaction.
Social interaction, which I think is a big thing.
Especially when you're eating. Why do you need to be entertained?
It's a time for conversation.
Agreed. We're not going to mom shame. We're not going to grandma shame on this.
Because
I think everyone has their own battles. But I do think a lot of people go with that idea of leaving screens only for travel, which I do get, long car rides or plane rides where you're trying not to disturb other passengers. But at the same time, on a train, there's so much to see out there.
There's so much to see. You could play cards. You could do this. It takes a lot of energy, though. So to your point, Sharon, of not mom shaming or grandparent shaming, if you're not in a position to be able to give the attention to the kids for whatever reason at that time, then maybe that's the best thing to do. But I just felt like that was their top tip, was to say, make peace with screens. I read it as a default mechanism.
Right. No, I can definitely see both sides. But the other thing that's interesting now is there's such an anti-screen movement. In fact, in our area, I just saw a couple of women, which I will reach out to them to see if they're interested in coming on. They just started a business of throwing free activities around the San Diego airport that are completely non-screen to encourage non-screen for all ages. So I thought that was super cool. But anyway, back to our travel things. One of the things I found that was really interesting, or not interesting, but fun for little babies to play with, are little suction toys that go under the airplane window that spin.
Yes, my daughter had those for my grandson's first trip, or,
Right. I got those, and they're even handy for them to sit and chew on in their mouths, too. So that double win.
Yeah, that's right. All right. #7, book a day room for long layovers. We did this after our family cruise. It was the best thing, and it wasn't that expensive, but you have to look around. So I used an app called Day Use, and I started with Resort Pass, but that was the wrong way to go. So I used dayuse.com, or whatever the app is called, on the Apple Store. And so I got pretty good deals, but you have to look at the fine print, because some will say you can get in 2 people, you can get in 4, but it was great. We spent like $60 for family of 4 to spend 8 hours at a pool. We got lunch, we just hung out as a family before we had to head to the airport. Otherwise, we've been sitting in the airport for like 10 hours after our cruise.
Right. No, it's another way you can find them too. We had this same problem. We were trying to come back from Panama City after a New Year's trip, and my daughter was very pregnant. She ended up giving birth like a month later. But we found out we were delayed 7 hours at this point. And her, with her pregnant stomach, said, there's no way my back can take that kind of delay. And she was not that pleasant to be around. So I was looking to see whatever I could to make her a little more comfortable. And I called the local airport hotel, which I think was like a Hilton Garden Inn or something around those lines, and asked for a day rate, which who knew they had those? And I think it was the same. It was around $60. We weren't even using the pool. She just wanted somewhere she could lay comfortably. And so we watched the TV. She laid in the bed. We ordered some type of Uber Eats or DoorDash for lunch. It was very well $60 spent because she was so much more comfortable. But and the same thing, and you don't think about those things until you need them.
Right. So we had planned ahead, and I actually had started calling, and now I think the hotels, they were referring me to day use. They use the app now.
Oh, okay.
But it was amazing. We all got to shower ahead of our flight because we had a long flight coming home, and it was the best thing ever. So I would reserve a few bucks to be able to do that if you know you're going to have that, and plan ahead. I mean, we had 20 people traveling with us, so we needed to plan ahead of what are we all going to be doing.
Right. Well, it's just nice to have a clean restroom and somewhere you can lay out and sit comfortably. And,
right. Or take a nap, like you said.
Right. Exactly. Another little note about travel that I had either forgotten about, or I don't think it's a new thing. I think I forgot. If you travel with a car seat, which we often do with the baby in the car seat, it has to be in the window seat. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
So we loaded up the first flight, and I sat in the window, baby sat in the middle, and my daughter sat on the aisle, and her husband sat on the aisle across. And flight attendants walked back and forth, never said a peep. We got all settled. After we were taking off, the flight attendant told us the baby seat can't be in the middle. I'm like, okay, why didn't anyone tell us this before? So once we were up in the air at whatever altitude, we had to unload the whole row and move the baby seat to the window. So that's a good tip for anyone when you're initially setting up, put the car seat in the window.
Did they say what was the reason?
They said if you have to suddenly get out of the plane, you can't block, the baby seat would block the aisle because it goes all the way up to the back of the seat.
Interesting.
Which I understand the rules, but it would have been super helpful if someone would have told us that before we set everything up.
Right.
But that's just a little tip. So if you are traveling with a car seat, make sure the kid is by the window.
Yeah. So number 8 was build-in cushion day to decompress. I think so true. When we all came back from our cruise, we got in at like midnight and we all had to work the next day.
Well, I was going to say, I don't even think this is a kid trip. I think this is a logic after a vacation trip.
Well, I think I worked anyway, but yeah, I just think in general, especially if you have kids, like don't think they're going to go back to school that next morning. Maybe you can suffer as an adult, but I don't know if the kids after that long of travel.
Right. Well, just getting back to track on sleep schedules and so forth too is rough.
Look, for cruises, you're set. You come back on Sunday, right? There's no way around that. But if there's a way to schedule in a cushion day and you can take that extra vacation day, definitely try to do that. Because we were all exhausted.
No, I agree with that. I've had to work many a times the next morning, but it's never pleasant.
Yeah. Number 9, build in playtime and don't overschedule your trips. I used to be, should I say, notorious for overscheduling my trips.
Yes, I've been accused of this as well.
Yes. Like I want to see so much. I want to do so much.
Go.
And my husband is like, don't plan too much. I want to just relax. I want to take in the environment. But especially if you have kids, they're going to be cranky, exhausted. It's going to be way more difficult. So be sure to spread it out and build in that playtime.
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing is there's nothing like a good pool day. Kids love the water.
Well, if you're in a place like that. Yeah. Right. For example, we spent a couple of days in Miami ahead of the cruise, and my daughter and son-in-law built in playtime for my grandson. We went to the park twice a day or something. There was a park. They have beautiful public parks out on Miami Beach. And so they went to a park. Then we took a bike ride, but it was after nap. Like just keep things continuously okay so you're not burdening all the kids with.
Right. Well, and if you can keep on somewhat of a normal nap schedule, everyone will be happier.
That's right.
Because once those nap schedules get messed up, it's not pleasant for anyone.
And I know you can't always do that.
Right. But no, whenever you can, for sure.
Yeah. But don't overschedule. So keep the others around you feeling a little better, even though you want to keep doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. The other things too that I've noticed traveling with a baby, which like I said, it's been years. So this is all kind of reminders and new stuff for me. but it's really nice to have extra space. So whether it be a hotel room that has like a living area and the bedroom, like a lot of Embassy Suites have, is super helpful. So once the baby or the kids go to sleep, the adults can still talk or watch TV. My daughter was in a hotel when they were looking for their house. And she said it was so difficult because when the baby went to sleep, the room had to be dark and they were basically having to whisper to each other and get their flashlights out and read books.
All the big chains have kind of their, I would say, lower end. They're still nice, but they're not as expensive. Like the Fairfield Inn and Suites for Marriott or the Homewood Suites for Hilton.
Right.
Like those have those extra rooms that you're talking about.
Exactly, which is really nice to have the extra space, especially when it's nap time or bedtime.
Yeah.
The other thing we've traveled with that has been helpful for naps, my daughter travels with a white noise machine. It's very small. It just blocks out some of the residual noise from the rest of the crowd. And something that I never did, but seems to help my granddaughter sleep a lot, is she carries a blackout curtain with suction cups. And it's so the suction cups suction to the window and the blackout curtain goes above it. So even in the middle of the day, she can nap better. Or if you're in a bright area, just the room is dark, basically.
Yeah, I love that. I actually have to have one in my office because I have a window behind me. And so being on camera, I look like I have a halo around me. So I have to stick those things up.
I often have a halo around me when I'm on camera.
But you're right. They're just so flat. It's easy to do.
I wouldn't have thought about that. And so when she traveled with that, I thought that was pretty clever as well.
Yeah. And then number 10, and this is my favorite, engage with humans to raise engaged humans. So just going to museums and just doing sightseeing and taking family photos isn't enough. Make the space for children to meet the locals, to talk to people, to engage with other people. I'd mentioned the parks in Miami. Look, there were so many different kids, and then we were talking to the other parents. They were from all over the world. It was just so great, and it gets the kids to practice their verbal skills, but also just to not have that social anxiety.
No, it's so true. And it's so fun talking to the locals everywhere because every place is so different and you get to learn so much. The funny thing about that is I've always been pretty outgoing and talkative. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
And my kids would be mortified. Like, Mom, why do you have to talk to everyone? Why do you have to ask the waiter or waitress stuff? Well, that's just the way to learn more about people and it's the way to interact with others. And now it's funny because they've learned that these skills definitely make their lives more enjoyable too, where they were mortified when they were teenagers.
And with, as we were talking about, with social media and computer age and digital and screen time, kids aren't being forced to learn good communication and social skills right now.
Or interact as much in person, face to face.
Yeah, so that was my favorite one.
I liked it too.
All right. So was there anything out of that list outside of those that we somewhat disagreed with that we missed, Sharon? You're the one that's been traveling the most with the grandbaby.
I don't think so. Like we did mention, it is definitely quadruples the difficulty the more children you add to the mix, but maybe in the future, both of us will give tips about multiple kids.
Yeah.
And I guess the opportunities to travel with multiple kids.
And the number one tip that wasn't mentioned, but I know is so, so important, practice patience.
So true. And don't have high expectations. I think you do definitely just have to roll with it and know that the kids are being well taken care of and relax.
That's right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I hope when your upcoming travels occur, you will take some of these tips to heart and have fun and safe travels with your family.
And we encourage, if you guys have any ideas for future episodes, please reach out through our social media because we would love to hear from you about any kind of topics that you would like to hear about.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the podcast so we can continue to grow our community. Also follow us on Instagram at Working Grandmas Podcast, on Facebook at The Grand Balance, a Working Grandmas podcast, and join our LinkedIn group, Working Grandmas. You can also email us at info@workinggrandmas.com or message us through any of our social media platforms.